Hello, Hebrew fans. We are moving on to our second day of online, or second, I guess, perhaps not day, our second module of online instruction here for the Exegesis of Kings. And just to point out a couple things that we're doing, we're shifting from First Kings to Second Kings. This is, again, a function of the size of ancient scrolls. They found as good of places as they could to divide the book into these two different pieces. So think of it as Kings A and Kings B instead of sort of the sequel or something like that. So after Ahaziah's the remarks about Ahaziah's reign in 1 Kings 22, the scroll got pretty big, so there was a separation there. One might imagine that the end of Elijah's career would have been a better separating point, but then again, the scroll would have been too big for everyone to carry. Remember, the scrolls were made of leather in the ancient world. So, in any event, we move on to 2 Kings, and the first chapter of 2 Kings is really this marvelous story. It is horrifying in some ways, but also it is very funny. It's this deeply tragic humor that recurs in 2 Kings 1. So I really recommend you read it. It's almost like a Coen Brothers movie in that there's this sort of morbid humor that recurs throughout. But also there's the appearance of Baal-zebub and Beelzebul. The Beelzebul would be the Prince Baal. But Beelzebub is a joke, which means Lord of the Flies. So that's where Lord of the Flies comes from. It's 2 Kings chapter 1. This is one of those names that people used in kind of mocking Baal in the Old Testament period. But then later on, once ancient Jews had progressed in their theology to the point where they were beginning to think about forces of evil that were independent of Yahweh's power. That is what we would think of as the devil or Satan, the development of that theology. They went back through their Bible and found these names that were scattered throughout to help them think about these ideas, like Day Star, Son of Dawn, which we say is Lucifer in Latin. And that's from Isaiah chapter 14, which was one of these places that was mined to give theological resources to thinking about evil incarnate. And 2 Kings 1 is one of these things. And so Jesus talks about Beelzebub or Beelzebul, and that comes from this text here. So in any event, we see another one of these, this 2 Kings 1, this is a text that's silly almost, but also involves death. But 2 Kings 2 is what we're going to be talking about today. So setting this up just a bit, we have this story about being taken up to heaven. That verb lakach is going to be really important for us. Here, let me actually make this a bit bigger here just to make it easier for us to see each verse. Lakach is a Hebrew word which means to take. It's that silly one that loses the lamed, for the first lamed sometimes. And this is very similar, of course, to the Enoch story. So we all, at least many of us, think we know what Enoch means, right? That God took Enoch up into heaven, but it's actually debated quite deeply in biblical studies about what actually happened. Was there a concept of humans going to heaven to live in eternity in the Old Testament period? Not exactly, in fact. So even the good people like David go down to Sheol. The question is, do you go down to Sheol happy and at peace and with progeny to kind of replace you on earth and remember your name, or do you go down to Sheol mourning and in grief and so on? And before your time. So that's kind of the big debate. So in any event, when Enoch gets taken, if you read Genesis 5:24, you'll notice that there's all the ancient versions. First of all, the Septuagint, the Syriac version, the Targums, they all talk about it differently. There's incredible dissension between the ancient versions about what it actually even says, which suggests that this was an interesting theological problem. But also this idea that he was taken. It's quite blunt in Genesis 5:24, and there's not much information about it. He was taken and he was no more. It doesn't say he was taken up into heaven. Elijah, the story of Elijah in 2 Kings 2 seems to me, at least, to be referencing this story, but exactly how is something we can try to tease out in the comments. What exactly happened to both Enoch and Elijah? Where are they, if not in some beatific afterlife? Of course, these stories influenced Jesus, the story of the ascension of Christ, the beginning of Acts. So this... And the Transfiguration story as well is referenced it references 2 Kings 2 and also the story of Enoch. So all to say, this is a fantastically interesting and tantalizing story that doesn't have a single answer. There is no widely accepted interpretation of this within biblical scholarship. Your guess is as good as mine about what actually happens here. So that's one of the exciting things about reading a text like this. We meet the company of prophets, or the sons of the prophets. I want to remind us all that sons doesn't necessarily mean biological males. Sons can mean parts of a larger type. So the company of the prophets, or the prophetic ones, the prophetic company, the prophetic group, is what's at stake here. These aren't biological sons. Just like B'nai Yisrael is the sons of Israel, but it doesn't really mean sons of Israel. It can be all kinds of people that cross over even ethnic boundaries, but people who identify with Israel. So that we might say the Israelites, the Israel people. So in any event, this company of Israelites, we meet them for a couple of times, and then there's this really interesting, strange geographic movement in this story. So I hope to see some engagement with some of these interesting and odd parts of the story here. So we'll start with our reading and our translation. I'll just read through 2 Kings 2, 6 through 12, and I'll bring up some perhaps interesting, perhaps not interesting things on the way, and I'll look forward to engaging with you in the comments again. By the way, thank you so much for the wonderful engagement with the text of 1 Kings 22. That was great, a really, really rich conversation. And thank you so much for putting time and effort into it. And I got a lot out of it reading your comments. So I'm really excited to see what the rest of the semester has in store. I'm sorry we can't meet in person, but I'm really excited to keep engaging with you all. So thank you. Okay, so here we're going to look at this for 2 Kings 6. And if I'm looking at my Masoretic accents, I have an accent here that's kind of tipping over the edge. And then I have another accent here that's pointing over. And then I have another accent here that's pointing back. So this is where I'll stop here. I'll read these first three and then stop and translate. So, and feel free to read along with me wherever you are. So, Vayomer lo Eliyahu. So Vayomer, the Vayiktol form, it's connecting to the narrative that as it's ongoing, we're jumping into the middle of the story. Of course, look at 2 Kings 2, 1 through 5 to catch up to where we are. But, and he said, right? So we have our Amar as our root, Yod, third masculine singular prefix. It could be a third common plural prefix, but we don't have an U here at the end. So Vayomer, and he said, and then Lo. Now Lo can mean not, but if it means not, it's going to have an Aleph here as the second letter. If it's a Lo with a Vav, that's going to be a Holam Vav, that's going to be to him. So, and he said to him, and then Eliyahu. Eliyahu was that's Elijah. Eli, my El is Yahu, is my God is Yahweh, or my El is Yahweh. My supreme deity of the pantheon is Yahweh, perhaps. Okay, so in any event, and he said to him, Elijah. So Elijah said to him, and the him here is presumed that's Elisha. These two characters are talking to each other, and then shave na po. And I'm going to stop here because this is a little disjunctive accent here, the diamond. So shave, this is an imperative. I know it's going to be a statement of will because na means I have just said a statement of will. Usually an imperative, sometimes adjussive, let him go, or sometimes a cohortative, like the first person, right? So let us go or let us stay. But here, because of this form shave, this comes from the root yashav. Perhaps it comes from shuv, right? Whenever you see a sheen and a bait next to each other, you might be looking at yashav, which means to stay, sit, or dwell. You might be looking at shuv, which means to turn around. Here, shave na po, so stay. Remember, when we make an imperative, what we do is we put it into the second person imperfect form, and then we strip off the prefix. So we stick on a prefix, which is going to destroy our first week letters, like first week yod, and then we take it off. We take off the tav. So here we get the missing first week letter. So if it was a middle week, we would get here shuv. It would be shuvna if it was turn around. But here, so shave, this is our first yod verb here in the imperative form. Shave na, stay, and then please, maybe, but it doesn't really mean please. It just means I'm expressing my will. So stay, po, which means here. Stay here. Ki Adonai, or Yahweh, shalachani ha-yardena. So let's go back over here to key for Yahweh, and then here's the verb shalach with a ni at the end. The ni, that's that first person object suffix, our pronominal suffix. So shalach, which means to send or stretch out. So send me. This is a call perfect. This is just a regular call perfect. It should be shalach, but our first long A-class vowel reduced when we added this ending, this pronominal suffix ending. We reduced some of the long vowels, right, at the beginnings of words, and sometimes in the second position when we add endings. So, for Yahweh sent me, the, and then Yarden, which is Jordan, and then this comet's hey, stuck onto Jordan. So Jordan is the name, Yarden is the name of the Jordan River. Yardena, we have a comet's hey on the end. Now a comet's hey on the end can mean several things. It can mean a third feminine singular object suffix, but here, when it's stuck at the end of a geographical location, most often, it'll be a directive or locative hey, location hey, go towards the Jordan. So, for Yahweh has sent me to the Jordan, or Jordan words, the Jordan words. Okay, so stay here. Yahweh sent me to the Jordan. This is obviously kind of a big, important site, and for some reason, Elijah wants to do this alone. And then, Vayomer Chai Yahweh V'chei nafshecha im e'ezvecha. E'ezvecha. And here's the athnach, this little wishbone thing. This is the athnach here, so I'll stop there. So go back up to here, and we'll translate. And he said, this is Elisha responding. It doesn't say Elisha is responding, but just based on the flow of the story and what he says, we would presume this is Elisha speaking. So Elijah is saying, leave me, stay here, and I'm going to go to the Jordan. God told me to go to the Jordan. He's sending me to the Jordan. And here, the response from Elisha is, and he said, life of Yahweh. And this is how you say an oath. Right? By the life of, it doesn't say by, it just says life of Yahweh. That's how you start an oath. And life of your nefesh. Nefesh can sometimes be translated soul, but they didn't really have an idea of a soul as like a disembodied thing. That's really a Greek idea that ends up being incorporated into Jewish thought in the Hellenistic period. But back in the ancient Near Eastern times, back before the Hellenistic era, this nefesh would mean kind of like yourself, including your body, but really kind of all of what makes you yourself. So the life of Yahweh and the life of you, the life of your life, of yourself, and the life of your body, the life of your entire self, or something like that. This is, again, a way of saying an oath. So Elisha is swearing an oath by the life of Yahweh, the living God, right, and by the life of you, by your own life. If, and this is how oaths work in ancient Hebrew, we tend to say oaths in English like this, I swear that I will do this. Or I swear I will never abandon you, or else I will throw myself off a cliff, or something like that, right? Okay, so that's kind of how we talk in English when we say these oaths, right? I swear on my mother's grave, I will never do that, right? In Hebrew, it's by the life of Yahweh, or by the life of you, or by your own life, if I were to do this. And if I were to do this, that's the thing you would never do. So they don't say not. If I say in English, I swear I will never abandon you. In Hebrew, the way they say that exact same idea is the life of Yahweh if I abandon you. It's just the way that they structure their oaths, right? So the wager is that Yahweh's life is on the line if I do this. Yahweh's going to die if I do this, right, or something like that. But it's also your life, It's not really that kind of statement, but you're swearing by Yahweh's living spirit that you are going to do this thing or not do this thing. So this is the negative. Yahweh's life. If I ezvecha. This is the ending. This is the second person pronoun, you. And here is 4 letters, 4 strong letters, which means we've got to look for one to take off. Our aleph here could be a first person, imperfect, performative, or prefix. So I, and then we have our root here, azav. Now, this root means abandon, and by the way, this is the same exact root that Jesus quotes from Psalm 22:1 when he's on the cross, when he says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Eloi, Eloi is actually pretty decent Hebrew, and lama is good Hebrew. Jesus usually speaks in a mixture of Hebrew and Aramaic, and so Eloi, Eloi, lama is Hebrew, and then sabachthani is actually Aramaic, and that's the Aramaic form of this root, azav. In the Hebrew, it's my God, why have you abandoned me? And that's this root here, azav. So in any event, if I abandon you, it's not that I'm gonna like leave you here or something. Leaving or staying here to Elisha is akin to abandoning Elijah, which is a really interesting way to that they see this very differently. This act of please stay here, Elijah says, like it's embarrassing to him or something that he sees this the ascension. Or whatever it is that happens. Elisha would see that as an abandonment. It means that Elisha perhaps sees this as something like a death, and something that involves suffering. He's not going to abandon him in his hour of need. Which should make us think a little bit about that verb lakach, which sometimes is used to talk about God taking the life of someone. So did Enoch die? Or did Elijah die here? But lakach can mean other things too, to be taken away to somewhere. It's interesting also that is Elisha taken up to the heavens? That does God dwell exactly in the heavens? The skies in ancient Hebrew thought, even the highest heavens doesn't contain God according to 1 Kings 8. So is God up there in the sky according to ancient Israelite thought? So it's all very confusing what exactly happens. But for Elisha, it's understood that Elijah is probably going to be suffering here, and he doesn't want to leave him alone. That's what I would gain from this verb azav. And then vayelchu Sheneihem. And they went. This is from halach. You're losing the hey because halach is the only first hey verb that does this, right? But it loses that first hey when you add a performative. And they went, the 2 of them. So they go on. So Elijah's unable to persuade Elisha to leave him. So, va hamishim ish, and here I've got a backwards accent, so I'll stop there. And 5 plural, and remember with numbers, chamesh is 5, so hamishim should be like 5s, right? It's the plural. But remember the way numbers work when you add a plural to the end of a number that's part of base 10 system, 1 through 10, 1 through 9 really. This is making it into the tens column. So this is 50. So chamesh is 5, chamishim is 50. So 50 ish, man. This is in the singular, but of course it means plural. There's 50 of them. Sometimes people do this in Hebrew, in English too. So it's like a 50-man team or something like that. It's the singular name, right? Man or something, which means kind of the plural, or a 50-woman team or something like that. So in any event, and 50 men. From the sons of the prophets, but remember we said sons, this is from the company of the prophets, halahu went. So this is just a call perfect verb, third common plural. So 50 men from the sons of the prophets went. Vaya amdu, and they stood. And this looks here, and this is your performative, right? Your prefix, the yod. It looks like underneath that you've got this patak, a short A-class vowel. That should be a hiffle, but it's not because this is a first ayin verb. It's going to force its A-class vowels that gutturals like onto the prefix. So this is just a call. Sorry. Again, those first ayin verbs tend to do that. So, and they stood. Mi neged me rachok. And here's our athnak. From in front of, from a distance. And they stood in front of them from a distance. Ushanehem amdu al ha-yardain. And the two of them, and then amdu, were standing upon. Sometimes this can mean next to, if you're talking about people standing next to, or on the Jordan. So this is not like Jesus walking on the water. This is the two guys standing next to the Jordan River. And the company of prophets, the prophetic followers, are standing kind of far away. So this is, geographically showing you this kind of moment of separation. To move on to verse 8, Vayikach. Here's our lakach, the lamed curled up a new ball and is inside our kof there. Vayikach Eliyahu. So, and Elijah took, it's Elijah doing this verb taking right now, not Yahweh yet. And Elijah took et adarto, and this is third masculine singular object suffix, his mantle, cloak. And all four of these letters mean kind of cloak. This is in construct here. So it's the cloak of him. Vayigalom, and he, and then this verb, which only occurs once, I think, in the Bible, and he wrapped up, curled up or something like that. I'm going to actually increase the size here. That might help a little bit too. And he wrapped up, and he wrapped it up, his cloak. This the root there is galam, by the way. And he wrapped up, and vayakeh, and he struck. This is from nakach. The noon is curled up there into a ball. This is a pretty common verb. So if you ever just see kind of a kaf hanging out by itself, you're probably looking at some version of yakach, and it often occurs in the hifel. So here's our patak here, our short A-class vowel that's telling us it's part of the hifel. Et ha-mayim. He struck the water. Vayechatsu, and it was divided. This is a nifal here. It should be a nifal triangle. This should be a hirek here, and there should be a dagesh in here to be the noon of our nifal form, our nifal triangle. But it doesn't exist because this is a guttural, and it rejected the dagesh. The dagesh went back, boop, 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 and now doubled, and is now making this tsere, this long I-class vowel, E-class vowel underneath the performative. So the root here is chatzah. We're missing our third hey because we added an ending here. So it's they were divided. That is the waters. Remember, waters are plural in Hebrew, and they were divided. Now you might think this sounds a lot like Exodus. But you should go check out to see where else this word occurs, and look real quickly at the Exodus story, Exodus 14. Look at what the P version says happened, and see if this is the same verb or not. So, hena, va, hena. It looks like hine, but it's not hine. It's hena. It's a slightly different word. It's a particle. It means here, here, and here, here and here. Here and there might be how we translate this in English, and here's our athnach. So, and the water's divided here and here. So you can imagine someone moving their hand back and forth in two places when they say this. Here and there. Vaya avru. This is from avar, where actually the root for Hebrew comes from, ivrit. This is the root that means to pass over or even transgress. But here, and they passed over. You might think this is a hifel, but again, it's a first ayin verb, so it's going to push its A-class vowel under there. And they passed over. Shenehem, the two of them. Be, with or in. Ha, rabah, the dry ground, the dry land. I want to look this word up too to see where this one occurs as well. So in any event, the two of them crossed over on dry land. These words might remind you of something, but I'll leave it to you in the comments to see if you can figure out a bit about why that might be important or interesting. Of course, water's parting happens more than once in the Bible. So, Vayehi ka ov ram. This is actually a kametz chatuf. When you see this symbol here, you're going to think kametz, long A. But when it's followed by a schwa, it's often ovram. Ka, so, and it happened, like, and ka means like or as. It can mean in a temporal sense, when, like at the time of. And then here's them at the end, the object suffix, third masculine plural. So, and it happened as they were crossing over, and this is a call infinitive construct, ov. So as they were crossing over, Eliyahu, and Elijah, Amar, said, Elisha, to Elisha, Sha'al, ma, esse, lach. And here's the Zakif Katon, so I'll stop there. Ask, and this is a call imperfect. Ask. This is a imperative, not imperfect, sorry. Call imperative. You can tell because it's only got the 3 letters. It's got no prefix, and it's got this kind of swallowed vowel at the beginning. So it's kind of like someone put on a prefix and then took it off. Remember that's the way we create imperatives. So here's the imperative. Ask, ma, ask what I, and here's the first person imperfect prefix, what I will do to you or for you. Ask what I will do to you or for you. Terim, in a little bit. Terim usually means this kind of a little bit of time. Ask what I shall do for you in a little bit. Elakach. This is from lakach, that same verb that's shown up a couple of times. And then here's the aleph, the first person, in a little bit. And then I will be taken, me imach, from upon you. Now this looks like a second feminine singular object suffix. Here's the athnach, though, when you have the last vowel above an athnach is oftentimes kind of shortened or swallowed. It's called in pause. This is a Masoretic thing. I don't know why they did it exactly like that. But in any event, this is a second masculine singular object suffix. Just happens to be with a swallowed vowel on top of this athnach. So I will be, in a little bit, I will be taken from with you. So I'm going to be taken up from you in a little bit. So please, basically, to tell me what I will do for you. What I can do for you is another way to think about this. This could be sort of a cohortative in a way. What I would do for you. In a little bit, I will be taken from you. So before I'll be taken from you might be a way to think about this in English. Vayomer, and he said, Elisha, and Elisha said, Vihi na, pi shanayim ruachacha. So ruchacha. We lost our sneaky patach when we added an ending to this word ruach. So it becomes ruchacha Eli. So to go back up here, and Elisha said, and then he speaks in a vayitol here, right? And he said, "Let it be, vayihi," and it's a jussive, one of these statements of will. We know it's a statement of will because it's followed by na. So may it be. This is a third masculine singular, imperfect, just a call imperfect of haya. Remember, if you see too many yods and hays together, you're looking at some form of haya. So may it be. P, which means mouth, and then shanayim, mouth of two, or a double mouth, two mouth. So one mouth, but twice. A double mouth. Ruhacha, with the spirit of you, with your spirit, to me. This is confusing syntax, but it might make more sense if you take a look at Deuteronomy 21:7, which tells us a little bit about what a double portion might be, or a double mouth might be, especially when it comes to somebody talking to who's about to leave this world in some way, talking to somebody else who is going to stay. So I'll leave that to you to figure out, but that's a fascinating and really important part. One thing to point out, by the way, is this A portion of a ruach is a really interesting thing, but also a double portion. We might ask the question: is Elisha being greedy, or is Elisha does he want twice the power or something, twice the spirit that Elijah had, or is he saying something else? And take a look at Deuteronomy 21:7 to see if you can get a handle on if Elisha's being greedy or not, or if he's being self-centered. He wants double Elijah's power. I mean, we should note, by the way, that Elisha often does double what Elijah does. Elisha revives 2 children and does multiple feeding miracles, as opposed to Elijah's 1 revival and 1 feeding miracle. So, in any event, it's that is an interesting question to ask. So, Vayomer, and he said, and this is Elijah responding to Elisha here, just based on the flow of conversation, Hikshita, and this comes from the root here, kasha, which means to be hard or difficult. And this is a hifl form. Here's our hifl, hih, and then we have an infixed hiric yod here. And then, so hikshi, and this is usually a third hey, so our third hey disappeared when we added our ending, but ta, this is our second person. So you are causing hardness, lishmol, to, and then this is from Sha'al, lishmol, like left-handed, lishol, to ask. This is from Sha'al. And here's our infinitive construct. So you are causing hardness to ask, or by asking. You are causing difficulty with this asking, with this question. Might be another way to say it in English. Im tir'eh oti lukach me itach yahi lecha chen. So you are causing difficulty asking this question. If you will see, this is an imperfect, right? Call imperfect of ra'ah. If you will see, and then o, when we have et, right, like this, and we have an o, that means it's a direct object. If it had an I, a hirek under here, it would mean with. Et would mean with me. Ot means object me. So if you will see me, if you will see me, lukach, this is like lakach would mean he takes, but this is lukach. This is a call passive participle. Way back in the fall semester, call passive participle, lukach, which means being taken. If you see me being taken from eat, this is the with, from with you. Again, we've lost our vowel there. That's not really in pause, so I don't really know exactly what's happening there. But from with you, it will be to you thus. So it's gonna that's gonna happen. You're gonna get that double portion or 2 mouths of my spirit if you see me being taken. V'im ein or ayin, and if not, if you don't see me being taken, lo yehya, it will not be. So you're not going to get the double portion if you don't see me. Now, why is this the magic trick? I don't know, but it's worth something. It's worth asking about and thinking about in the comments. So, vayehi hema holchim haloch v'daber. And there's a zakiv katon, so I'll stop there. So to go back here, and it will be, and it was, hema, they were walking. So, and it happened, they were walking. And then haloch v'daber. Now we repeat halak twice here, which usually means intensification. But just look at how it's structured, though. It's haloch v'daber. And this is a PL infinitive form here for daber. And this is the call infinitive absolute form, haloch. So they were walking and talking. And it happened. They were walking and talking. Vahine, and behold, rechev esh, a chariot of fire. But chariot can sometimes be in the singular to mean the plural, chariotry. there's like deer, is kind of singular and plural, right? So in any event, a chariot of fire. V'susei esh, and horses of fire. So this could be a bunch of horses pulling one chariot of fire, or this could be chariotry of fire and horses of fire, which does occur in the plural. This is the plural construct here, which is why you're missing the maim. So these things of fire. We're going to see this stuff of fire pop up again in 2 Kings 6 when we translate it, but you can think a little bit about what these fiery things are, right? In the comments. So vayaf Ridu Bain Shenehem. And there's the third masculine plural object suffix, and they parad, which means to separate. And here we have a patak underneath our performative, which means it's a hifel. And they caused separation, Bain, between Shenehem, the two of them. And they caused separation between the two of them. The chariots of fire, that is, go between. A lot of people think of this as Elijah going up into heaven on a chariot. But did that happen? Vaya'al, this is from Allah, to go up. And this looks like it might be a hifel form, but it's not. It's just the first ayin that's forcing its patak onto the performative. So, and they went up. Eliyahu, and Elijah went up. And in or with Sa'ara ha-shamayim, a whirlwind, and then the heavens. Now you might think this is a whirlwind of the heavens, but if it was, that would be in construct, and this would be sa'arat, a whirlwind of the heavens. But it's not, so it's a whirlwind, the heavens. Maybe this is supposed to be locative, but we don't have the hey in the end, right? It's a plural, so that'd be a little hard to do anyway. So heavenward. So he went, and Elijah ascended in a whirlwind heavenward. So is he on the chariot or is he not? We can chat about that, I guess. So Elisha and Elijah, ro'eh, was looking. Here's our participial form. Vahu. And he, tsa'ik. Here's a meme stuck onto a root here. Tsa'ak. Tsa'ak, to cry out. Often to cry out in pain or frustration. A meme here, participle, which participial beginning prefix, which has a schwa underneath it, which says it's a PL. Remember, a patak would mean this was a hifel participle. But PL tells me it's schwa tells me it's a PL participle. So, and he was crying out. So, and he was crying out, Avi, Avi, father of me, my father, Rechev, Yisrael, the chariotry of Israel. Parashav, here, from parash, and then av, third masculine singular object suffix, and horsemen, and the horse riders, and it's horse riders. So this would be it, like Israel's, and it's horse riders. Velo ra'ahu, and he did not see, od still, and he did not see any longer. So did he see the chariots of fire? Yeah, he didn't think. I guess he saw them, right? And he saw up here, but then he saw no longer him. This is probably Elijah, so at some point he disappears. Vaya chazek, and he seized. Looks like it's a hifel here, and it is in fact, even though it's a first guttural. And he seized, and he grabbed, and he took. Biv gadav. This is beged, garment. So with the clothes of him, Ivgadav, Vayikra'im, and he tore them, he ripped them up, ripped his garments. This is what you do when you grieve. This is another suggestion that maybe this isn't such a happy thing for Elijah, or at least for Elisha. Lishnayim, this is to the two, and then Kara'im, pieces, into two pieces. So he ripped his ripped his clothes. All right, that's where we'll stop for today. There's lots of interesting things to ask about. It's a tantalizing story. It's been really, really important in the history of Christianity and Judaism. If you know Elijah at a Seder, there will be a chair left open for Elijah. Of course, in the New Testament, people were asking if Jesus was Elijah. And John the Baptist is framed as someone like Elijah. In 2 Kings 1, that's where we hear that Elijah is a hairy man with a leather belt. And that's when the king immediately knows that it's Elijah the Tishbite. By the way, I guess I pass as Elijah the Tishbite, usually wearing a leather belt and hairy. Okay, but in any event, so there's plenty of things to talk about, and look forward to hearing your comments as we move on.